Sit with Lexi B.
Good sis, how are you?
I'm good, girl. I'm good.
You know, I was born in the late 80s, and I tell people, I'm like, yo, what I have lived through, yo, okay. Blessed be the fruit.
Girl, bless your soul. Bless your soul.
So where are your people from? Where are you from?
My people are from the indigenous lands of Central America, from Honduras and in the Caribbean side. So we got a little Caribbean flavor. And I got to be real specific about that because I think people who are from the coast have a very different way of living life, way of enjoying life, even down to cuisine. We eat different things. So we're from the Caribbean side, La Costa Norte de Honduras. And I'm also from San Diego, Southeast San Diego. Also have to be very specific with Southeast because it's a very vibrant Black and brown immigrant community. And that is a huge part of my identity and my family's identity is being an immigrant, navigating a culture that is different than their own, and navigating the shit out of a world that was not created for them. Like it's crazy. And that was a lot of my experience and my upbringing. So my people are from indigenous Mayan lands. They're from Honduras in Central America. They're from Southeast San Diego.
I remember I went to San Diego for the first time, and ready for this, the hotel was in San Diego, which for the record is an experience, in downtown San Diego. And on the first day that we were there, we went to La Jolla for brunch. And the whole time I was like, this is different.
I didn't know I lived by a beach until I was like 10. I remember we went to a church event, 4th of July, and I was like, this is like 15 minutes away from us? What? There's a whole different side of San Diego? That's crazy. And even like upbringing, like I went to a very like immigrant school. Like all of us spoke, I mean, mostly Spanglish. So everyone was speaking Spanish, English. Like there was all this like, you're either Latino or you're Black or you're sometimes Pacific Islander. But like it was very much an immigrant community. And I remember going to a high school, which was like, this is part of the story. I won't get into it, but we moved to a different part of San Diego and I went to school and I felt like, Lexi, I was in a movie. I was like, y'all got lockers? Y'all got white people who are quarterbacks? That's crazy. Like, I really felt like I was in a movie.
Like it's giving 90s, like can't hardly wait, right? Like what?
Yes. And I was like, this is so cool. Like, I didn't realize how non-diverse San Diego was because I grew up in a very diverse part of it. So
my educational experience was the exact opposite because I went to an all-white school. So I was the one like watching the 90s movies like, yo, there are more than 2 Black people as extras in this cafe. Won't God do it? I want to go to that school because I was the only one of anything at school and it was completely traumatizing. But
wow.
Let's talk about money. Let's talk about some coinage. You disclosed to me that you did not grow up wealthy.
Mm-mm.
When did you realize, like, what was your first understanding of money? Because I know a lot of folks who did not grow up wealthy, and they'll say things like, I didn't know I was poor until this moment where I was like, yo, we don't got it like them though. And what they have, I want. What was that moment for you?
Oh, girl, this is so real because I had no idea. I mean, one of the things I'm so grateful for is growing up in that immigrant community of Southeast because we were in this like condo apartment complex and everybody was an immigrant. I feel like we were all trying to make it. We were all this huge community. So our next door neighbor was like the homie and they were Puerto Rican and they were also immigrants. And then we had across the street, we had a Somalian couple and like we had a Vietnamese on the other side. And, like it was just this like super vibrant immigrant community. And we always, you know, when they say like, go ask your neighbor for sugar, like we really did have that. Like they would come over, ask for things. Like it was such a cool.
You all sound like the colored Hallmark Christmas movie.
But it was also like all my family was there. Like we had uncles, cousins, like they were all in the same complex. Like my family, you know, we had some codependency issues, but we were always together. And I'm one of 7, so really, really big, vibrant family. And growing up was really like I had a great childhood. Like it was just it was beautiful. We spent a lot of time together at family parties or at church, and it was a great childhood. And so for a lot of my life, I thought, I'm good. Like, I didn't think anything different. Like, we were going to parties all the time. We always had food on the table. We always had clothes. I didn't always have new clothes, but I had hand-me-downs from my sisters, and they were always good style. Like, I don't know. It was just it was a great childhood. And it wasn't until 2008 when the market crashed. And we were one of the many immigrant families affected. And we were living in our cars for 6 to 8 months. And that was a weird moment for me. I was young. I was 11 years old, 11 turning 12, middle school already. So many things happening during that time of my life. But we were all going through it. I mean, it was 7 of us. My nephew was there as well. And that was the moment that I felt like, what happened? Like, did we not have money? Like, where's our cousin? Where's our aunt? Where's this? Where's that? Like, I was asking so many questions, but in my own head, because as the youngest in the family, in a Latino family, you're not really the one to ask questions or like get into adult conversations. So a lot of these things that I was like kind of going through was on my own. And it was weird. I could see that we were all kind of going through it. So that was the moment where two things happened. One, I was like, oh, maybe we are really poor. And I had no idea. And two, I never want to be in this situation again. So what do I have to do to not be in the situation again? And I'll pause there.
As you were talking, I was thinking about Black and brown folk and how I define that in this moment, because people define it differently, is people that are from the diaspora somehow, some way, right? And people who are this very interesting Latino mix of the diaspora and indigenous folk because of colonization, and how we as people, because of the circumstances that we're in, because of the systems that plague our children, we will do everything in our power to mask what's really going on, to protect the little bit of innocence that we can control in their lives. And so on one hand, now that I'm older and wiser, I'm like, we need to be talking to children about money, especially Black and brown kids about money. On the other hand, I want to honor and uplift your parents for saying, let her be a kid in a world that very quickly is going to make her not a kid.
Yeah. And, I give them so much gratitude now for that, because they were protecting us. And I mean, I felt like very spoiled growing up. I didn't have, again, the newest clothes, newest shoes, but I always got toys, even if it was, oh my God, my dad was a construction worker. And he would always go to these like nice houses that people didn't want remodeling. And he would bring these toys. And it was like the rich kid toys. And he would like come with a big bag, and me and my brother would be like, oh my God. And then we would just kind of go through it. And so I felt very spoiled. Like, I'm like, I had everything I wanted. But what happens, it's really interesting. What happens when you start to get something that you didn't have before that you wanted, then you kind of get obsessed with it. You kind of get addicted to, oh, I want more. I want more. And then you get to a point where you're like, it's never enough. And then you feel like you're living a life that's never enough. Whereas I grew up poor, but I grew up plentiful and abundant. And it's crazy. It's crazy how money can turn you into someone that isn't abundant, someone that's almost greedy, wants more.
So basically your dad was Santa Claus, not just, and multiple times throughout the year. I'm not mad. I'm not.
He would bring birds too. This is a random Latino fact. He would bring birds. That was like his gift to us, like real life birds. And he told us a story recently that I hated the birds in cages, which tells you everything about me. But he said he brought home like a bird. It was in like a box. And he's like, hey, look, I brought you like a gift. And I like opened it and the bird just flew out. And I was like, it's free. And then he's like, that bird cost me some money, girl. Like, you just like let $50 go. And then he tells me, he's like, that like they're not going to be able to survive out there. They're domestic. And I was like, what? And I was like, so sad. But since then, I'm like, I don't like pets in the house.
That's traumatizing. It's like when you find out that like they shot Bambi's mom, you're like, what?
No, literally. But all that to say, like, I will be like grateful forever that immigrant parents have taught me to be so abundant with the little they have. Like, they find a way to make people feel so loved. And I used to think, part of that conversation I was having when we were homeless, right, was maybe we're in this situation because my parents are too giving. And, I almost had that conversation with myself. Again, I'm not talking about this with anyone, but anytime a neighbor needed anything, a family member needed anything, my parents were the first to be like, yes, we'll help you. Even though they couldn't always help, or even though they were like scraping money. And I felt like maybe they're too giving. That's why we're in this situation. And now no one's giving to us. Now no one's extending their hand. What I found out later, part of the Latino experience, is we're really prideful as a community. And turns out no one knew that we were in that situation because we played it cool. And I was told that when you go to school, don't talk about where we're living. When you go to church, don't talk about where we're living. Like, there was rules and like, don't do this, don't do that. So basically we were really alone in that human experience. Even with each other, we weren't talking about it. So it's just a lot of pride with that too.
Did you see, I promise we're going to get back to money, but did you see this viral video? I think it went viral a few years ago. And around the holiday time, Christmas time, it comes up again. Latino family, parents are immigrants. They had like 8 children. Okay. I have 1 child and I'm like, y'all over here having more? Wild. But that's a separate conversation. And the kids are grown. So these are now elders. Like, the kids are grown. These kids now have husbands and wives and children that are probably in their teens. And the video caption is grandma and grandpa giving my mom and all of her siblings the toys they wanted when they were little that they couldn't afford. And I'm talking like grandma and grandpa went to the store as elders and were like, little Lucy always wanted a Cabbage Patch doll. And now Lucy's 50. And so it's this video that one of the grandkids took of them giving their adult children these like childhood toys they always want. And I just know. Have you seen, like, it's just.
I haven't. I'm tearing up right now. I'm like, I don't know if I need to see that.
It's the most heartwarming thing because I think it just shows you that regardless of your financial position, parents are parents. And just because they said we can't afford the Lego set does not mean they ever forget it. So to watch their parents be able to give like these grown kids, like, girl, you do not need a Cabbage Patch doll. Let's be very clear. Okay. Give this Cabbage Patch doll and give like the Lincoln Logs set. And they were clearly like very kid-like toys, and see the parents tear up and the kids tear up, and to see like these 40, 50-year-olds just break down like they're 6. And I was like, if that is not human connection, I don't know what is. It's so beautiful.
That's so beautiful. And I tell my parents now, because I do have conversations with them a lot more now, and they tell me like, I'm just, they're like, I'm sad that we don't get to give you guys anything. Like, we don't have a house to pass on to you. We don't have like this to pass on to you. And there's a lot of vulnerability in them even voicing that. And I tell them all the time, I'm like, you guys immigrated here. You brought us here. Like, that in itself, me being able to go to college, me being able to be a citizen, like, all of these like privileges that I have now, like, you did break cycles. And you have to remind your parents that sometimes. Like, I think sometimes we're so hard on them, and sometimes I blame therapy. I love therapy, but sometimes I blame therapy for like how people treat their parents. And I'm like, they did a lot with what they could. Not everyone, but like, parents are just doing the best they can with what they have. And we forget they're humans too. And so I look at them and I'm like, you all did enough. Like, it's time for y'all to rest. And they don't know how to rest. I mean, Latino parents will never rest.
Girl, the black ones.
Girl, the black and brown, they don't like to rest.
You sit. Oh.
They can't. No, they can't. I really think they're incapable of it. So yesterday was my mom's American birthday, and there's a story there. But she has an American birthday and her real birthday, and we celebrated it yesterday. And she was like up and serving and cooking. I was like, can you sit down and enjoy your friends and family? Yeah. And she's like, no, I have to do this. I have to do it. She just, no one controls it.
So you're homeless and you're starting to have all these feelings. You're also in middle school, which we have to honor regardless of what caste system you're in, what class you're in, what race you are, and what gender. Like, middle school is hard. Like, those years, very difficult, trying to navigate the world. You're not a kid anymore, but you're sure as hell not an adult. What were your first thoughts with money? Because I can see this go a few ways, right? So what did little you say, this is what I will and will not do to be in this position when I grow up?
Oh, there was so much happening then. And I mean, I have to paint context too. I went to a middle school that was in the hood. I mean, I went through a K through 8, so I was in the same school for 9 years. And it was a school I was talking about. We were speaking Spanglish. So what ended up happening is that another school down the street merged, and that's how it became a K-8. And now we have these two groups. And as much as I love like Black and brown unity, I think that we have to be honest, and it's not always there. And in my community, it was very much segregated. So the Latinos stuck to themselves, and then the Black community stuck to themselves. Every now and then, like people like me and my friends like Alexis, like we were like the mesh between the two. We're like, we're all homies here. But there's not always that camaraderie within the community. And that's something that I hope and pray to see more and more of, is our Black and brown unity. But growing up, that wasn't the case. And so there was a lot of fights happening. It was, girl, it's funny because I would see these movies like Freedom Riders, and I'd be like, this was normal in middle school. Like, now they make movies about it, which is so funny. But it was
people getting paid to do it.
Saying, I'm like, no one paid me in middle school when I was going through it. Like when I tell you, there's a vivid day that I remember of me. This is like the first day all of us, like this new school merge, and we were all sitting in class. This teacher walks in and everyone's just talking, and she's just trying to get our attention. She's like really trying, and everyone's just talking. And I'm in the back with my friends, and we're like low key trying to pay attention, but we're talking too because everyone is. And then she starts speaking, and she slams her like hands on the table, and then everyone looks, and then they start throwing things at the teacher, and they're calling her white trash, and they're throwing, and I'm just like, me and my friends are like, you want to go? And then we just snuck out the door. But that was a normal day in middle school. So on top of like dealing with life, I go into this space where it doesn't always feel safe. There's like, fight can break out any moment. I can't look at somebody a certain way because I was always trying to like, don't look over here. Like, I'm just not trying to be part of no problems. But there was a lot of like battle of hiding. And I found myself hiding in all these spaces. And so there was a lot going on, but there was two things again that I knew. And it's one, I'm really poor, but I have to figure this out, and I have to know how to never be in this situation again. But more than that, Lexi, it was, how do I get out of this in general? And now I could say I was trying to get out the hood, but like in the moment, I'm like, I just want to get away from all of this, the violence. I want to get away from poverty. I want to get away from my family. Like at one point, I just wanted to get away from everything. And I did that. So, I mean, we went to high school, went to a whole different high school, and I was like trying to assimilate as much as I could. I'm like, oh, there's like, I had to change my accent, maybe change my nails, because, I love my nails. But I'm like, let me change like the way that I come off, because I want to be seen as part of the group, or I want to be seen as part of them. And I remember going into a meeting with my counselor, and I'm like, how do I get to college? Like, how do I do that? Because my brother was already kind of on that track. So I was like, I'm going to just follow his footsteps. And she was like, well, it's going to be really hard for you to get into a school because of your grades. Again, talk about the education system. I'm coming from a school that's in the hood, and then now I'm going to a school that's one of like the top ones in San Diego County. And there's a education gap. There's a discrepancy there, because what I'm learning in middle school is old news. Like, I'm literally learning like from old textbooks held together by duct tape. And then I'm going to another school where they're talking about like honors and AP, and people know different things. And I'm like, how do you know that? And they're like, I learned it in middle school. And I'm like, what's going on?
That wasn't in my school.
No, I was like, what? And I was top of my school. Okay. In middle school, I was like the smart kid. So I'm like coming over here, like, I don't know what they're talking about. And that was the first time I felt dumb. So now I'm like learning new things. I'm like, I never want to be poor again. Never want to be homeless. I want to get out the hood. And I want to be the smartest person in the room, because I never want to feel dumb again. So I'm telling myself all of this. And then I'm in this school. My counselor is telling me it's going to be really hard for you to get into college because your grades they're not the best. And a lot of those like grades is because I didn't know the education in middle school. So I'm in this like predicament of like, maybe college isn't for me. So what do I do? And so I'm like consistently, 14 years old, thinking about all these things, right? Like, how do I make money? But it wasn't just about me. It was about, how do I get my family a house? How do I get them out of their situation? How do I do this? How do I do that? It was like almost like this savior complex as well, which, shout out to therapy, made me unlearn that. But I think that there was a lot of different things I was telling myself. And I finally got to college. I went to San Jose State and I got there, and I was like, okay, well, now I have to assimilate even more, because these people are connected. They know what they're talking about. And so I started to join these different spaces and try to like change even my accent, girl. Like I was changing everything about me. I wanted to be super professional and I wanted to be super like smart and studious and like be part of all these clubs, something I didn't do in like middle school or high school. So I wanted to be one of them, whoever them was, right? Whoever I saw as successful. And I got through school, cum laude. I was like, I'm smart, got my A's, I got my degree, I did it in 4 years. I paid for school by myself. I got like those 3 jobs. And I feel like I felt like I did it. And I made my family proud. I graduated. And then I graduated. I got a job that everyone said that's what you need to do after college. You need to get a job at this agency, blah, blah, blah. Did it.
It's the capitalist dream. It's the capitalist dream. You graduate, now you have a job. So when you go home for the holidays, it's like, what you doing? Oh, well, you know, I got that full-time gig. Okay. Yeah. I got those benefits. It's the capitalist dream.
But what they didn't tell me was I was working this capitalist dream, making $15 an hour in the city in San Francisco. And I was traveling from San Jose, an hour train to get to, just like back in the day we had to go into the office. But I go to San Francisco on an hour train.
Were you Cal training it?
Cal training it.
Girl, I used to be on the Cal train.
But I was doing that every day, 5 days a week. Because again, we were going into the office 5 days a week. And Lexi, when I tell you I got into that office and capitalist dream, right? And I'm surrounded by people that don't look like me at all. And I'm like, nobody. And even the ones I did were like not speaking my same language. And I'm looking around, I'm like, felt so like lonely. It felt so like the minute I walked in and I sat down and like they're speaking corporate speak with the corporate laughs and the ha ha ha. And I'm like, what are they even talking about? And I just felt like so out of place. And I would hear conversations, and this is all over time, but I overheard conversations around like there was one couple or I don't know, this like girl and another person. They were talking across the room and I could hear them talking about this girl with long nails. And they were like, oh my God, it's so disgusting. How do you even like press on the screen, blah, blah, blah. And they're like talking about this girl with long nails. And I'm looking at mine like, who thank God I have them short. Yeah. And then at one point, I had someone tell me like, you know, you should really wear cardigans to cover your curves because it could be distracting. A woman, and I will say it was a brown woman, which I was even more sad about, but she probably had to deal with her own trauma, so I give her a lot of grace. But there was so many like moments, and again, I'm already hiding in middle school, I'm already hiding during this like homeless period, and then I'm here now and I'm hiding even more, to the point where I just kind of put my head down. I was like, well, I just need to work, I just need to make money, I need to send money home. So I don't care if I'm like couch surfing, I don't care if I'm doing this, like I just need to send money home, or I need to save money for myself. And then I got to a point where I was just not happy. And it was a few months into that agency. And I was like, I cannot be here anymore. Like, I just really can't. And I ended up leaving. And the way God works, like I ended up leaving that job. I took the train down. And on the way, I had a text from my friend. And she's like, you need to come to this networking event happening in Redwood City. And I was like, girl, I just left my job. Like, I don't have the energy right now. Like, I just did a lot. And she's like, no, you have to come. And shout out to your tribe. Shout out to your people that will make you come out of that comfort zone, come out of that shell to do things. And so I ended up going to Redwood City. I went to this event. And then I met this woman who I had adored. She was a professor at San Jose State. And so we ended up talking. She's like, how's the new job? And I'm like, you know, I'm actually looking for something different. I want this and this and that. And she's like, well, I have an opening. You should apply. And then I ended up working with her for 2.5 years. And best experience of my life. All women, so fire, so dope. She gave me so much autonomy, loved my creativity, and just allowed space for me to play. And I think because of that experience, I've built a career around play and dreaming. And she changed my perspective around, it's not about how much money you make, it's about the people you're around, the people that you have. And so because of that job, I mean, I ended up leaving there after 2.5 years, and my priorities have changed completely. I'm like, money will come and go, but it's what's around. What are the marbles that you're holding on that you're not letting break? Like, what are the things that you're working for? What are the things you're working toward? And what's your purpose? Because you can be in this capitalistic cycle forever. And I would hear stories from like older people, like talking about, oh, they've been working for 30 years. And then they got to a point where they're like, oh my gosh, like, this is not what I wanted to do. And so that was another thing. How do I not be that? And yeah, I mean, I'll pause, but a lot of the things that were going on in my life was about hiding. And I think after that job, I began to come out and started to just show. I'm like, all the things that make me me, down to my homeless story I was so ashamed of, and down to like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to be that girl from Southeast San Diego. I want to be this. I want to be that. All of it made me who I am. And I step into these spaces knowing like, I don't got imposter syndrome. I know I belong here. I'm educated.
Girl, the number of times that I tell people, I'm like, you don't have imposter syndrome. You're having a moment where you're like, wait a minute, this person cannot spell. That's what you're having. And that's different from imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
You said a lot of gyms. I first want to highlight, you went to San Jose State. I went to a school down the street, may or may not have partied at San Jose State multiple times. That is an off-record conversation that I'm happy to share. 2, the thing you said about your nails and how the people at work were talking about long nails. The same thing happened to me with my hoops. And I distinctly remember starting my first day of work and wearing my hoops and then taking them off because someone, a well-intentioned woman, told me that it was too hood. Which is weird because I've actually never lived in the hood. But I took it in and I took my hoops out. And I remember the day, like a year later, that I started wearing them again and symbolically what it meant for me. So I see you and your wonderful, wonderful nails. Thank you. I have many. So my question for you is that I feel like your story from a financial perspective comes from this place of, I figured out that there was a lack of money. And I interpreted as a child, because of the lack of money, here are all the other things that we lack. So then I grew up and I said, let me figure out how to play in this capitalistic board game, if you will. And then also realized that the pendulum, I'm not happy. Unfortunately, we live in a society that is a capitalist society. So like bills have to get paid. And so many of us, even if we don't want to, we have to plan it. My question to you was, what was the moment that you realized, yo, I don't need all the money in the world to be happy? Because I think that is a transformative moment, especially for adults who used to be children like us that view the world in like, the social media. And, I'm old, so growing up, we had social media, but we had like the magazines in the grocery store that were like, right. Yes. And used to have like does your crush like you, quizzes and things like that. But still very much this society of culture consumerism. This celebrity is cool because of their bag. Like I grew up in the era where MTV was like Pimp My Ride and like MTV Cribs. Girl. Which, by the way, MTV Cribs is such a great show. And it is the extreme definition of you want my stuff, right? Or my sweet 16 birthday party.
And why they always have a car? Like,
what 16-year-old needs a Lexus? None of y'all do. But like watching those shows like Laguna Hills, it was Laguna Beach and the Hills and all these things that glamorize this idea of like, I have money and you don't. So what was that moment for you where you said, I don't need all this. It's fine. It's fine that I did not have a Lexus at 16. As a matter of fact, I thank my parents that I didn't. Like, yeah. What happened with that?
I was going to say 2020 when you were talking about like, when was the moment you're like, I don't need all this, but actually it happened before. So part of me doing this job, working with that woman, shout out to 𝐟𝐸𝐫𝐿. She is the homie. But I think that I ended up taking a trip by myself, and it was the first time I ever did a solo trip. And everyone in my family was like, where are you going? Like by yourself? And Latino families just don't like you traveling by yourself, which I understand, but I wanted to go to Guatemala, and I ended up going, and I found this like volunteer group to go with. And it was going into this place in Guatemala, to a poorer place, a more like rundown place, to build a water well. And then what I figured out when I got to the volunteer group was that everyone was white but me. And so they're like, oh my God, like you can be our translator. And I'm like, okay. And so we end up going, and we're with all these Guatemalan kids and they're all looking at me like, what are you doing here? Lexi, when I tell you they were serious, they looked at me and they're like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, what do you mean you're not excited to see me? And they're like, but there's never any like Central Americans that come to it's usually the gringos. They're like,
girl, these baby Guatemalans said I was born at night and I left at night. And this don't make no damn sense.
Oh, and they're like, but if your parents immigrated, why are you coming back? Like, don't come back. And I was like, this was the first time my eyes were opening. I'm like, oh my God, they're so used to seeing the white savior, right? That kind of like American coming into their lands and helping rebuild. And you know what's funny is that the kids are telling me that water that they're about to build is so nasty. Another like group, another like neighborhood has it. And like that water, like no one drinks that water. And I'm like, wait, you guys don't even want this?
You're like, actually, no, but okay.
And it was, but you know, that week spent with them, like I could cry thinking about how much they changed my life because I was the only person that spoke Spanish, and like Central American Spanish has a different like twang to it. So even like speaking Central American Spanish with them and just really bonding with the kids, the women, the community, I just realized that like no one's talking to them. Like these people come into their lands and they build, and it's another form for me of colonization, of like going into someone else's land and building and trying to make it better because how they live is not okay. And they're actually so happy. They're abundant. And one of the things I learned throughout that trip was one of the kids was telling me, you know, like we used to be so close to that family in that house, but she's like, but they changed. And I was with the little girl and her mom was like, yeah, their kids moved to America, to the United States, and they made a lot of money. They started sending money back. And now they built this like little, like nice, like bigger house. And now they have this and this and that. They have TVs in there. They watch music videos, like they're plugged in. And she's like, what ends up happening is the more you have, the more you want. And then it's never enough. And then you think you're better than all the rest of us that, you know, still live in like shacks and like tin roofs, like things. And I asked them like a real question. I'm like, you're happy in your house, aren't you? Like you just love your house. And she's like, of course, it's my house. Like I worked for this. And it was a moment of like, I was happy and abundant too when I was a kid. And we didn't have a lot, but we had a little house. There was 7 of us. It was always loud. It was always crazy. Something was always happening. And it was abundant. And to your point, we live in a capitalist society. So yes, we have to survive. And I like nice things. Like I'd be lying if I sat here and said, I don't want a Gucci bag, or I don't want this. I don't want a hell of them. That's true. But I like nice things too. I like nice dinners. And so leaving Guatemala for me was it made me ask a lot more questions about what I prioritize in my life and how I want to show up for my community, for my people. Because I never want to go to a land and be like, they're like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not supposed to be here. You know what I mean? And so I ended up leaving, and I was thinking about how can I help my people. I thought like, let me help my first gen community, people who are sons, daughters of immigrants, started doing more of that work. And I was doing this like dual work. I was doing my actual job, my 9-to-5 that was paying me money. And then I was doing this community work where I was going to like these schools and trying to help first gen kids like prepare for life after college, because no one talks about that. But I was doing this dual work and I was realizing my heart was in this and I'm super fulfilled, but this is what's paying the bills. And I thought I had to choose one because I didn't have time for both. And so I ended up choosing my 9-to-5. I'm like, I'm going to step away from that. I'm going to focus on my 9-to-5. And then 2020 hit. And then I realized I'm going to take a little bit of a risk, and I'm going to just go all in on my passion and like really hone in on building something like a podcast.
Go off. Yeah.
So I left my corporate job and I ended up becoming a full-time entrepreneur. Again, what I learned is we are operating under a capitalist society. So it's cute to like be all about your passion, but it's not paying the bills. And I financially take care of people in my family as well. So like there's responsibilities on me as well. And so I was an entrepreneur for 8 months. I was making some money, but it wasn't enough for a 9-to-5. And so I ended up going back into the workforce. But here's what I found, Lexi. There is a way to do both. And in a way, like I sometimes feel like part of capitalism is to choose one path and like go down that tunnel hole and like just do one thing for the rest of your life. And what I sometimes find interesting is that being part of the first gen community, being a multi-passionate creative, like you can do whatever you want. Like that is maybe one of the benefits of being in a capitalist society is that you can do multiple things. And so for me, I'm taking advantage of being able to have my own business, my podcast, and also work in a 9-to-5 that helps me invest back into my business. And so there's a life that I built, again, that's of creative and play and dreaming, but I'm doing both. I'm satisfying my passion and my 9-to-5. But at the same time, I hope that one day I can step away from that 9-to-5 in totality and just be like, I'm gonna go all in on my passion. I'm gonna go all in on community. But right now I've been blessed and fortunate enough to do both. But yeah, girl, it's like a dilemma sometimes. Like, do I want to feed my pockets or my heart? I don't know, but I think you can do both.
I think you can do both, but you have to have a plan.
You have to.
And I think the issue with social media, people gonna be mad, but I'm gonna say it. It's my show. Shit. Is that a lot of people on social media who are glorifying entrepreneurship and that kind of thing, they're not talking about their strategic journey to get there. And I think that you can do both, but because we live in a capitalist society, and hate to be the jerk in the room, we are grown. And unfortunately, we have grown people responsibilities. That I think that there needs to be that moment of, this is what I want to do. And then there also needs to be this moment, because we live in a capitalist society and bills are paid, of like, so how do I get there? And if that means that I don't do it full time today, but I do it full time tomorrow, and I love those conversations. But I do think that sometimes social media glamorizes stuff without the full context.
100%.
And I think that the people younger than us, as they make these decisions, need to have the full context,
Yeah. And you know what? Like, that's becoming a thing. I asked my nephews who's like 13, 14, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to be like a YouTuber and like a hustler and this and that. I'm like, do you even know what that means? Like, you don't even know what this means. Like, you don't know. You don't know. And I also do want to say, people can also choose to not do both. Like, people can choose to be a full-time entrepreneur. People can choose to be a full-time 9-to-5. Like, I think that there's no shame in choosing how you want to live your life. Like, it is your life. For me, I look at the workplace. I don't look at workplaces as purpose. Like, I will be the first one to say that. I think that that's part of capitalism. They want to make you believe that a company or a job is your purpose. But I'm like, I'm bigger. People have been asking me, I'm not going to go deep into it. People have been asking me like, how you feeling about TikTok and like what's happening? Because I work there. And I'm like, I'm gonna be fine. Like, I'm cool either way, because at the end of the day, my purpose is so much bigger than TikTok. Like, I work there, yes, but my purpose is bigger. But at the end of the day, again, like, we are operating under this society. There are bills to be paid. My strategy and what I've been able to do is like, figure out what works for me. And sometimes that means my podcast and my business is not going to get my energy this week because, work is working this week. Or on the weekends I'm working, but I also can say all of this. I don't have kids. I don't have a husband. I don't have a lot of responsibilities in that way. I do have other financial ones, but I do have a little bit more flexibility right now. I know that this is going to change when I do get into that part of my life, but I've been able to strategically build it in a way that it runs on its own. I took that 8-month break from corporate because I wanted to build my foundation and build my business and build like, how can this run like on its own so that I'm not like always trying to edit every single episode. So I hired a producer. Now I have a producer that does all of that work for me, and she takes so much off my plate. It's a lot of delegation, a lot of trust, a lot of building the foundation. And now it can operate on its own without me having to do it every single day. Like, those 8 months, Lexi, I was like business development. I was graphic designer. I was like business owner. I was doing all the things.
You were everything. You're everything. All the things.
Everything.
Yes.
I was making sure people knew who I was. I was posting every day on LinkedIn. I was like messaging people like, hey, can I come into your ERG or your company or your organization or your school to speak? And like, all of that was in that 8 months. Like, I went all in. And if it weren't for those 8 months, I wouldn't have built the foundation that I have now to be able for it to run on its own. And who knows, maybe I'll take another little break and be like, I'm going to step away from corporate. I'm going to go back into this and I'm going to like do my little thing. And then I'm going to jump back in. Like, who knows what it'll bring. But for right now, I know that my priorities lie more in my 9-to-5 because that helps me have the lifestyle that I have, and it helps me invest back into my work. Now, my work doesn't mean it's not a priority. It just means it's like taking a little bit of a back seat, but it's still running. It's still popping. It's still out there. And so it's a ebb and flow that I think that I have been able to kind of navigate and know is just going to continue to ebb and flow. And I'm not going to be perfect at it. And I'm not going to stress myself out if I don't post for a week, like, which I used to. I used to be like, oh my God, I have to post an episode. But then I'm like, it's not fun that way. It's not purposeful that way. It's not passion driven that way. It's more like, oh, I want to make something out of it. Right. And so I started to look at my podcast as this is not a for profit. This is just a for purpose. And that's what's able for me to like have a little more fun with it and have a little bit more creativity and play. And then my 9 to 5 gives me the more rigid stuff, but it's a little bit of like structure and it's a little bit of play.
So reintroduce yourself to us. Who are you?
I like to say I'm a storyteller. And I say that because I think everything that I do is storytelling. If I'm doing an event, if I'm doing a podcast, if I'm doing this right now, if I am working on a speaking engagement, if I'm at work doing creative production, everything I do is storytelling. And I'm a storyteller. It's part of my blood. It's part of my DNA. You asked me earlier, where are my people from? They're from indigenous lands where indigenous practice, Latino practice is storytelling. And I always channel that ancestral power of like sitting by a fire and like sharing oral history in real time. Like I'm so all about that, whether I'm writing, whether I'm speaking. I'm a storyteller and I want to continue telling stories in every single way, medium, channel possible to represent our community and represent who we really are. Because if you don't tell your story, if we don't tell our story, no one will.
Or somebody else will.
Or somebody else will tell a story for us.
But in the gaze of them, which is inaccurate.
That part.
Ooh, child.
And that's why platforms like you, like what you have right now is so powerful because we take the mic back. When the mic was never around or never available to us in the beginning, like we have the mic now, we have the power to tell our story. And that's what makes platforms and podcasts, that's what makes us so powerful is we're able to tell our story. And then people realize like, oh, they're actually fire. And they're going to probably take over the world, which God willing.
Girl, that's a whole separate episode, but shout out. This was wonderful. Thank you so much for agreeing to be here.
Thank you for building this. This is beautiful, beautiful space.
Thank you.